We are going to get started with our next panel, and I would like to introduce the former executive director of the Pembina Institute, Ed Whittingham. We don't seem to be able to get rid of him for some reason. He's going to be facilitating our next panel called Changes in the Air. So I'll bring up Ed to introduce the panel.
Thank you.
Great, let's kick off this panel. It's great to be back at the Alberta Climate Summit. It's great that we had such a good morning. I hope you had a good lunch. Just as a reminder before we go any further, Slido is up. Please go ahead and post your comments, and we'll be having a look at those comments at the end of the panel before we open it up, when we open it up for Q&A. I think it's an exciting time to be having conversations about Alberta's energy future. And to that effect, we've assembled a great group of panelists here to explore a vision of what Alberta's future might look like. We know the world's population is going to go from 7 billion to 9 billion between now and 2050, and that's like adding 2 Detroits a week for the next 30 years. We're going to go from 50% of the population living in cities to 75%. We've got a climate problem, but we still need to provide energy services to those additional 2 billion people. These are all massive drivers of change, but also massive drivers of job creation opportunities. And we need bright people working at full capacity on solutions. And so that's why...
Before we go any further, Ed, I just want to congratulate you on just a very diverse panel. I mean, look at us up here. Well, no, because this is 2018, right? So it's always important on every panel to have at least one woman, one, what should I say?
Academic.
No.
Thanks. I'm Filipino.
No. The generic.
Person of color. Racialized.
Yeah. At least one woman, one person of color, and then I suppose the other 2 can be white man, but not all of us, right? It's 2018. Could we get Anthony a mic here?
That's great. Thanks, David. That's not exactly how I would... I'm going to introduce everyone in the panel here. Oh, thank you. Well done. Starting with Anise Andrews. So Anise is...
She's the woman.
Anise is. And we're very lucky to have her here with us today. She's been active on climate change issues since she was a child, including attending the United Nations Climate Change Conference as a youth delegate when she was only 11, and receiving an Emerald Award for Youth at 14. Recently, she's been making waves as an up-and-coming entrepreneur. Originally from Calgary, she's a student in corporate innovation and entrepreneurship at...
It's amazing. I mean, young people, our future, right?
Yep, that's literally true.
So welcome, Anise. I'm sure you're going to be an inspiring addition to our panel. Next, we have Anthony Tomas. He's a postdoctoral fellow in Earth and Atmospheric Sciences who has been doing very exciting work on risks and opportunities around watershed management in Alberta in the coming decades.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And finally, to my right, David R. Stewart, who is an investor in diverse energy initiatives and current president and CEO of Infinite Vista Consulting. Welcome.
Thanks, Ed. And, may I just say,
Why don't I, when I pose the first
how
question?
much more relaxed you look after leaving Pembina?
Thank you.
No, I mean, I don't know how you people do it. I mean, talking outside of more sides of your mouth than most people have. Well, it must be exhausting. I'm just ribbing you. We go way back. It's all good.
Well, David, I really like to keep things buttoned down.
Well, that's one way of putting it. Okay, so he used to, oh, this is hilarious. So here comes Ed to a meeting on his bike, slicker over his suit.
I can already tell this is going to be a very vibrant discussion today. So I'd like to move us along. I'd like to invite each of you to talk for about a minute about what's on your mind and when you think of what lies ahead for the province. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to turn to sure.
Thanks, Ed. I'm glad to be here today because I feel pretty passionately about this. Alberta is uniquely placed to face this challenge. Look, we already have the best energy industry, a great one. Probably the best in the universe.
I think you mean the world.
No, sure. But look, there's a spirit here. Innovative, pioneering, gritty, friendly, resourceful, unusually good looking. Not all of us, but some for sure. And so, if anyone's going to figure this thing out, it's Alberta.
Can you give us a trend, David, that you're particularly excited by?
Upcycling carbon into a leverageable asset, for one.
Sure.
Anytime we can upcycle, I'm in. Or leverage, definitely.
Great. Okay, well, let's turn to Anthony.
I can just finish my thought.
Sure.
I just wanted to say, clean solutions are our future.
I completely agree. Now, so turning to Anthony.
I, for one, am excited to make this transition over the coming centuries.
Decades.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Now,
No, I'm done.
Okay. Let's. David says he's excited by Alberta's future. What about you, Anthony?
Okay. I can speak to my work into the impacts of uncertain variability in future climate on grain yields from a hydrologic perspective. I've created climate models from the years 2028 to 2058 that indicate an increase in precipitation in the northern regions of the province. That is rainfall plus snow of 3 to 15%, which will lead to a significant bump in rain-fed barley. Meanwhile, the southern regions will experience a precipitation loss of up to 9%. Can
you draw a bit more for us the link around, well, what does this mean for the province? And keeping in mind that we've got a room full of mostly non-technical people today.
Yeah, of course. Hordeum vulgare, commonly known as barley, comes in two main varieties. One with both central and lateral florets, and the other with spikelets at each notch.
So, but what was this about a bump in barley?
Oh yes, that the climate change will lead to a significant bump in and increased barley yields in Alberta, particularly in the northern regions of the province.
No, keep going. I'm just making a note.
Grain-fed barley in the northern regions of the province.
This is great stuff, buddy. Alberta wins on barley.
On rain-fed barley.
So this is a good news story then.
For barley,
yeah,
yes.
and for Albertans.
Well,
there's always an upside, right? It's obviously going to be a boon for Alberta's breweries, and what else we use barley for?
Oh, lots of things. It's great animal fodder.
Alberta beef.
Yes, and unleavened bread.
Nice.
Barley's-
Great stuff. Do you have a card?
Yeah, just give me a second. This, can't tell you how much this means. Nobody seems to understand. My wife even just says, Anthony, why don't you, nobody wants to hear about the effects of water, stress on barley, and my parents even, they don't, sorry, I can't seem to, just give me a second here. And I was at a dinner party talking about my research, and everybody had to leave early because they had food poisoning, which I thought was odd, because I too had the, here we go, kale Caesar. Thank you.
Great. I'll have my assistant connect us.
That does sound like an offline conversation. Anise, let's move to you. I'd really like to hear your viewpoint.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Whittingham. At this pivotal moment, the task that falls to my generation is to take a realistic assessment of...
Yeah, I would avoid using that word if I were you. Falls, it's very negative.
Okay. The task facing my generation is to take a realistic assessment of the
Super inspiring, eh? Future leader, am I right?
A realistic assessment of the likelihood
Let's
of
have a round of
any
applause for this
significant-
inspiring young lady, hey?
Why don't since why don't we're doing it naturally anyway? So I'd like to move the conversation and open it up to a discussion of what we think is the greatest opportunity for Alberta in the face of climate change. Now, I'd love to hear all your voices on this.
You just have to
question,
look
but,
to the history of
Dave,
Alberta,
Dave.
Ed. We've risen to every challenge that has ever been thrown at us. I mean, the flood of 2013, bailing out basements, opening our doors to strangers. McMurray, same, except fire, not water.
And these kind of extreme weather events are only going to increase.
Yeah, let's see what else. Dinosaurs, they go extinct, boom, they're upcycled into carbon, right? Dinosaurs have definitely been leveraged into assets. And that's one of the things we're known for as a dinosaur province.
Anthony, do you have a specific opportunity that comes to mind?
Yes, barley. Actually, my models indicate that northern Alberta is going to be much warmer and wetter, which on the face of it doesn't bode well for the boreal forest, but in the spirit of what you're saying, David, it could lead to an increase expansion of in the northern region of more than 900 kilometers of arable, farmable land.
Well, that sounds like an incredible advantage, right?
Yes, to grow barley and other things as well.
You could make a living as a consultant.
You really
on
think
this.
so?
Absolutely.
Really?
Let's take a step back here. I don't think this is actually an opportunity we really want to be pursuing.
Agreed.
So why don't you weigh in, Anise? It would be wonderful to have a youth perspective.
It would be wonderful. Sorry, this is the 36th event that I've shared my youth perspective at in the last decade. It would be wonderful. And really, this is your idea of Alberta in the future. Really, it's growing slightly more barley. But there are cruise ships sailing the Northwest Passage. This is so small-minded. The task that falls to my generation is to take a realistic assessment of the likelihood of any significant climate action and create scalable business opportunities in response to the impacts of an inevitable increase beyond 2 degrees. For example, investment in potable water. This is already a crowded market, but it should be part of the portfolio of any serious person. Alberta wine, a crucial opportunity that is currently still being overlooked. We have the opportunity to build vineyards on the eastern slopes. We're probably 15 or 20 years out from production, but now's that time to become really well positioned. Exporting clean air. Obviously, immediately from those areas of Alberta where air is still worth exporting most of the time. We'd begin with China, but of course markets can only expand. Breeding fireproof trees. Self-explanatory. Facilitated backroute channels of border crossing for climate refugees. Self-explanatory. survivalist boarding
And these, did you climate refugees, are you talking about human smuggling?
sightseeing tours of severely threatened species. My startup, which already has several investors, is called Last Gasp, and we focus on the cuter of the Albertan species with opportunities to actually cuddle a burrowing owl or console a swift fox.
Wow, wow.
Excuse me, Mr. Whittingham. I thought it was my turn to speak. So, and if you don't mind, with all due respect, sorry, may I swear here? With all due respect, what the fuck, Ed? The first Canadian action plan on climate was created in 1995. I wasn't even born then. And you've invited me here to inspire you. I have been trotted out by environmentalist groups since I was 11 years old, so that people can feel hopeful and that I can be a little eco-warrior and play out all the emotions that you all are so afraid of feeling yourselves. But the truth is that my best bet for the future is simply to make things livable for as long as possible.
Well, this all seems just a bit dark, doesn't it?
Dark. Canada has never met an international emissions target. Ever. Not one time. So what's dark is you all pretending that that isn't dark. And you have had your say, and now it's my turn. Anti-smoke personal bubbles. Now, these would be useful immediately, obviously, but they'll need to be attractive and backed by some sort of celebrity that appeals to the demographic that can afford them. I'm thinking Drake or Mallard or some other celebrity that I would know the name of had I not spent my childhood trying to fight for the planet when you all have effectively done nothing. Effective mass production for cooling blankets for heat stroke. Importing clean air. Then a 50-year plan. Forget the outside. Move everything inside. Live indoors. With a VR component for the last one, obviously.
Wow. Wow. I mean, yeah. I mean, everything I like is inside anyways.
What a fascinating panel conversation we just had.